everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about some books that I read in January. I would love to hear about some of your recent reads, so make sure to comment those down below. I'm starting off with Chasing Shadows by Lynn. Peter and Lena live on a farm in the Netherlands and they have a strong Christian faith. They also have 3 children, Anne, McKee, and Wim. Anne is tired of living on the farm. She thinks life on the farm is dull and the Christian life is just a bunch of rituals. Anne wants to move to Leiden, which is the city nearby. Anne's mother does not want her to go, but Anne's father thinks Anne is very strong-willed and thinks this is a great trait for Anne's to have, but he encourages Lena to talk to her father. And Lena's father says that if she loves Anne, that she should let her go to the city. When Anne gets to the city, she gets a job as a companion for Professor Huizinga's wife, Eloise. Eloise has severe depression at times. She can go for months when she is happy, but the happier she is, the greater her depression will be when it comes. Anne is able to live with Professor Huizinga and Eloise in their 4-story house. Anne and Eloise go on many outings together. One of their favorite places to go is a little coffee shop. On one of Anne's days off, she goes to this coffee shop alone and she asks the waitress what there is to do for fun in Leiden. The waitress tells her that there's a dance tomorrow night and wants to set her up with a boy named Eric, who is a police officer. Anne agrees to go on this date with Eric, and she goes on the date with Eric and they hit it off and they start spending more time together. Over in Cologne, Germany, Miriam's father has decided that his wife, Miriam, and him are going to leave Cologne, Germany, and go to the Netherlands. They are being persecuted as Jews, and he thinks that the persecution is only going to get worse. He tells Miriam that she can only pack 1 suitcase, so Miriam packs clothes, photo albums, candlesticks, and her violin. When they arrive in the Netherlands, they go to Westerbork, which is a camp for refugees. On the 3rd day there, Miriam is playing her violin, and a young man named Avi comes and listens to her play and asks her to continue when she asks him if he would like her to stop. He has been at the refugee camp for 4 months and is trying to get a visa to go to Palestine. Miriam's father wants to stay in the Netherlands. He is a professor and he's running to many professors that he knows to try and get him a teaching job at a university. So every day, Miriam would play her violin and Avi would listen, and then when Miriam was finished, Avi would read a psalm to her. Over Miriam's time at Westerbork, she and Avi begin to fall in love. One day, Professor Huizinga asks Eloise how she would feel about welcoming guests into their home. Eloise is a little apprehensive since she finds out they are German, but once she realizes they are refugees, she is more okay with this idea. Back at the camp, Miriam's father shares that he has found a job in Leiden and that they can now leave the camp. By the time Miriam's father has been approved to teach, Miriam and Avi know that they want to spend the rest of their lives together. But Avi's visa has not been approved to leave Westerbork yet. So Miriam leaves Westerbork with the hopes of being able to see Avi one day again. That night when they arrive, after supper, Eloise wants to listen to the radio, but Professor Huizinga doesn't think it's a good idea, but Eloise turns on the radio anyways. The announcer has this terrible tone in his voice as if something terrible has happened, and Eloise turns off the radio. Professor Huizinga then tells everyone that the Nazis have invaded Poland, they're bombing Warsaw, and have broken their agreement with England and France, so war has been declared on Germany. Everyone hopes that the Nazis won't invade, since the Netherlands is neutral. Later that night, Eric comes to visit Anne. Anne tells him that they're hosting Jewish refugees in their house. Unknowingly for Anne, this is the beginning of her resistance work. Eric tells Anne that he has been required to go for military training to add to his training as a police officer. Unknowingly for Eric, this is the beginning of his training to work with the Nazis. How will Eric and Anne's relationship progress as they deal with being on opposite sides of the war? Choosing Gratitude by Demoss. With this specific book, I just want to share some thoughts and some quotes and what this book is about. Demoss challenges and equips the reader of this book to live a life of intentional thankfulness, based on the thankfulness of the freedom that Christ has provided for us and for the blessing that other people have in our lives. By intentionally having an attitude of thankfulness, we replace bitterness and entitlement with being humbled and joyfulness. To not choose gratitude is more costly than we usually realize, not just to those around us, but to ourselves as well. At the end of one of the chapters, she writes, "If you read this book from cover to cover and are moved by the stories, nod your agreement, even say, 'That was a great book,' and then simply move on with your life, my purpose in writing it will have failed. It is my intent to issue a call to a radically different way of thinking, living, viewing life, and responding to God's grace." This was a very encouraging book, yet convicting. I found many ways I can be more intentional with my attitude of thankfulness, and I will take many of the things she mentioned in the book and apply them to my life. If you haven't read it, you need to go read it. It will change your perspective on gratitude. I just want to share a few thoughts and quotes that stuck out to me. Gratitude is not the quiet game. It begs to be expressed both to God and to others. Silent gratitude, Gladys Beth Stern says, isn't much use to anyone. We can't just assume that people automatically know what we're thankful for or that we're thankful for them. We have to express it. For gratitude to become a true joy maker in our heart, it must be expressed everywhere, at every opportunity, both privately before God and publicly before others. It doesn't matter how you express your gratitude, whether by a card, email, phone call, or in person. What is important is that the person receives your gratitude and that you are developing a heart of gratitude. But how grateful are you to God when no one is looking? How quick are you to give thanks to God when everyone is looking? How much space does gratitude take up in your everyday interactions with others? Gratitude is not just for private consumption, but for public conversation. To give thanks to Him for all things is indeed a very difficult duty, for it includes giving thanks for trials of all kinds, for suffering and pain, for reproaches, for loneliness. Yet those who have learned submission will not find it a hard duty. And that quote is from Priscilla Maurice. Most of us are able to thank God for His grace, comfort, and sustaining power in a trial, but we don't thank Him for the problem, just finding Him in it. Another one that stuck out to me is she talks about how to create a spirit of thankfulness within marriage. Obviously, I'm not at that stage in my life, but you don't even just have to apply this or think of this in regards to marriage. You can think of this with anything you can apply it to. So this is what she talks about. For the next 30 days, propose not to say anything negative about your husband, or fill in the blank. But for the purpose of this, I'm just going to use husband since that's what she uses. Not to him and not to anyone else about him. Every day for the next 30 days, express at least one thing you admire or appreciate about your husband. Say it to him and someone else about him. If you do this with anyone or anything you apply it to, your perspective will be gratefully changed and you will probably think more carefully about what you say. I learned that in every circumstance that comes my way, I can choose to respond in one of two ways. I can whine or I can worship, and I can't worship without giving thanks. It just isn't possible. Next time a situation comes your way, will you worship with gratitude or will you whine with discontentment? These next two books that I'm going to talk about are connected. The first one is Out of Hiding by Ruth Gruener. Ruth was originally named Aurelia Gamzer and called Lucia for short. She was a happy child living in Poland with her parents, Barbara and Isaac. They owned a chocolate shop. Due to the restrictions as Jews, Lucia could no longer go to school and her parents had to close their business. A former customer of the chocolate shop offered to hide Lucia, and her parents thought this was the best option in order for her to survive. After sneaking her out of the ghetto where Jews were forced to live, Lucia found herself in a situation where she had to sit quietly without getting up or looking out of the window all day long. Lucia walked past the window one day and a neighbor saw her. This put lots of tension on the family that was hiding her. They thought, why are we sacrificing 6 lives for one? So then the parents decided to hide Lucia in a box without their children knowing, and Lucia could only get out of the box once everyone was out of the house, and she had to be back in the box before everyone came home. One day, one of the children leaned against the box and it moved, so that was the end of Lucia hiding in a box. So then she just went back to the way things were. And one time, painters came to the house, and so they put Lucia in a bag and left her downstairs for the day. And when the painters were done for the day, they brought Lucia back up, and this lasted for a few days, but it worked, and Lucia was never found out. During this whole time, Lucia forgot how to walk and talk, and she only could whisper. Eventually, it was discovered that her parents were hiding with a former employee of their shop, and Lucia was reunited with them, but before she could be reunited with them, she had to relearn to walk and talk again so that they wouldn't seem suspicious while they were heading there. Finally, in 1944, Poland was liberated, and Lucia and her family were able to come out of hiding. And this isn't a spoiler of the book, because on the book it says a Holocaust survivor's journey to America. But surviving the Holocaust and finally being able to come out of hiding and restart their lives was more difficult than it seemed. They'd lost their house, their possessions, and most of their family, and so they decided to immigrate to America, and it says that on the front of the book, like I just said, so that's not a spoiler. And they also had family in America, so that's why they decided to immigrate to America. But the immigration process was very slow. Eventually, they made their way to Krakow, Poland, and later to Munich with other Holocaust survivors. And there it was that Lucia first met Jack Gruener. In 1948, they were still trying to immigrate, and then also in 1948, they received their visas to be able to immigrate, and then on January 7th, 1949, they boarded a ship to sail to America. Arriving in America, Lucia changes her name to Ruth. She arrives in Brooklyn, New York, and she starts attending school, and she makes many new friends. Suddenly, Ruth is plagued with vivid memories from the Holocaust of her life in hiding. Ruth is determined not to let these memories control her life, and reconnecting with Jack Gruener helps her. They eventually marry and have 2 children, and this also isn't a spoiler if you read the forward of the book. So this second book is Prisoner B-3087 by Alan Gratz, and this is Jack Gruener's story, and like I just said, Ruth and Jack married, so this was Ruth's story that I just talked about, and now this is going to be Jack's story that I just talked about. I did not read these back to back, but I read them both in January, and for the sake of this video, I thought it would make the most sense to talk about them back to back. Yannick is 10 years old, and his life revolves around friends, school, and his loving family that all live in Krakow, Poland. His relatives know something is going to happen very soon. They have heard that Hitler wants to make Europe Jewish free. 6 days after the German invasion of Poland, all the Jewish people had their rights, privileges, and freedoms taken away. In 1942, when Yannick is 12, the Nazis begin building the wall that is known as the Krakow Ghetto, where all Jews have to live. Yannick and his parents find themselves living there with thousands of other Jews. In the ghetto, Yannick and his father prove to be very resourceful in order to survive. On top of the apartment that Yannick is living on, he finds an old pigeon coop, and he creates that into a little home for him and his family to stay in so that they don't get rounded up by the Nazis. Yannick's father manages to get bread under very dangerous circumstances. And despite the danger, the Nazis have forbidden Jews to practice their religion. Yannick's father gets a minyan, which is 10 bar mitzvah Jews together to celebrate Yannick's bar mitzvah in a basement in the middle of the night. By the time Yannick is sent from the ghetto to his first of 10 concentration camps, all his family has died. Once he gets to his first concentration camp, he sees his uncle there. Yannick's uncle teaches him survival skills that will last him throughout all the concentration camps that he goes to, with the most important piece of advice being survive at any cost. Aspen Crossroads by Janine Rosche. At a farmer's market in Whisper Canyon, Haven has found a chick that has a deformed foot. While she is looking at this chick, a man named Jace comes by and buys the chick and promises he will take good care of it. Jace has secrets of his own at Whisper Canyon. This is a place he promised his mother he would never return after her death. Yet, Aspen Crossroads has been chosen for this new farm-to-table restaurant that will help Jillian, Rosalie, and Sunny permanently leave behind the world that they were rescued from. So I'm just going to stop right here. And please know that this book deals with a very difficult topic, so if you find that triggering, just go to the description and click the next timestamp, and you can go listen to the next book. To the community, there are rumors of a polygamous cult or something even worse down at Aspen Crossroads. It's made clear that no matter what is going on there, that the mayor does not want them there, and he's not afraid to make his opinion known. Jace is looking for a therapist / counselor to come alongside these women and do life with them and help them get back on their feet. Haven is a registered counselor. She has recently shut her practice due to a mistake on the job that has left her questioning everything. Haven thinks this will be the perfect job to start fresh. He warns her that her reputation will be tarnished by working at Aspen Crossroads. Haven still takes the job. The mayor then begins to threaten Haven, her father, and her siblings. Haven then wants to quit, but after Jace hears Haven's story, Jace promises that he will keep Haven safe. At first, the girls don't seem to want Haven there. They are not opening up to her and they don't trust her, so Haven takes a big step by moving in with the girls. Haven and Jace develop feelings for each other, but this troubles Jace knowing that he's going to be leaving Aspen Crossroads to go and start the next farm-to-table restaurant somewhere else in a few months. In between this restaurant and Jace and Haven's relationship, Haven is helping Jace discover his origins and his mother's story in Whisper Canyon. Haven is able to find some people in Whisper Canyon that know of Jace's mother, and they are able to fill him in on some of the details, but not everyone in Whisper Canyon knows all about Jace's mother. In His Image by Jen Wilkin. In this book, Jen Wilkin focused on describing the 10 attributes of God that we can apply to our daily lives. These 10 attributes are: God is holy, loving, good, just, merciful, gracious, faithful, patient, truthful, and wise. Jen Wilkin explores the question, how should the knowledge that God is blank, fill in any of these 10 attributes, change the way I live my life? This book allowed me to reflect on my life and see where I'm reflecting God's character and also where I need improvement. Jen Wilkins wrote about God's character in a relatable way, using life experiences, but most importantly, pointing back to Scripture. I love that each chapter ended with verses relating to the topic, very powerful reflections, and a prayer prompt. And the final book I will be talking about is The Dressmakers of Auschwitz by Lucy Adlington. Lucy Adlington met Brenda Kohut, one of the 25 women who sewed clothes for top SS wives, including Hedwig Haas, who is the wife of the Auschwitz commandant, Rudolf Haas. SS wives are supposed to be ideal ladies. They needed to be supporters of their husbands, but clothing was also a symbol of status. While Auschwitz was a death camp, the Nazis used those imprisoned there for labor. Hedwig Haas started a fashion workshop, which was called the Upper Tailoring Studio. The women in this workshop were forced to sew in order to stay alive. They also used their position to help and save as many people as they possibly could. For example, a lady named Marta used her own position to suggest and choose other women she could depend upon to sew, such as a woman called Irene, who was chosen because Irene's brother Lacey had married Marta's sister Tarulka. So Irene was chosen. Then Irene suggested her good friend Barcha. Barcha was chosen and revealed she had a sister who could sew, and on it went, and this workshop grew to 25 people, and it had just started out with 2 people. This book starts off by talking about fashion in Europe, and then it goes to the Jewish people and their stories in the book, and their stories of Auschwitz and how they sewed in order to survive. Thanks for watching this video. If you haven't already, make sure to comment some of your recent reads down below. I'd love to see what you're reading. Also, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, make sure to do that so you don't miss any future videos I post. Also, don't forget to like and share this with anyone you think might enjoy. Thanks for watching!